how you can evaluate yourself in a generic yet effective way to understand where you are as a basketball player and thus where you can grow and improve. So let's start with the sort of easiest and most obvious way to evaluate yourselves that most players do, most casual players do, just sort of instinctually, naturally, which is, how did I do physically? Sort of the overall approach I think is best to take from a physical standpoint is, how did your body react? That being established, let's move on to the little bit more nuanced aspect, which is evaluating yourself from a mental standpoint. I think the best overall way to describe how you should evaluate yourself mentally comes in the form of how fast did the game play out in your mind. That's the ideal version of mentally evaluating yourself out here on the court, where you want to be. Stepping back to talking about physically real quick, when I evaluated myself out here from a physical standpoint, there was two conditions. It was one, from a physical standpoint, I was pretty much where I expected myself to be. My standards are really low, being super retired for such a long time. Playing against people who are more than half my age, my standards are really low. But I did think that I played as well as I could realistically, physically expect myself to play. When it came to mentally evaluating myself, the two conditions I'm talking about are when I was waiting, like if I'm on defense and I'm waiting for the other team to make their move. So the other team is setting up their offense, trying to decide what they're going to do offensively while I'm waiting for them defensively. The second condition is once they actually started executing and applying the strategy they were trying to execute, then mentally, that's when it seemed to speed up. So it's like slowly waiting for them to execute, and then they're executing. That's because, you know, from a mental standpoint, everything's moving in slow motion for me. But from a physical standpoint, once they start actually executing, and because I'm so under-conditioned and they're half my age, once they started imposing themselves physically, that's when the game sped up for me mentally. Because physically, I couldn't keep up, and because of that, mentally, the game accelerated in those quick moments. Rounding this out with how to evaluate yourself psychologically, which is my favorite aspect to focus on, because psychological basketball is something that very few players ever consider, and the fewer players that consider it means those players don't have the knowledge and weapons that you do if you do focus on the psychological end of basketball.